What's up, guys? Node Investor here. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I'm just getting back to the week here, and as we kick off the week, I was watching the price action over the last couple of days, and since Friday, man, there has been very tight, very quiet price action. It's been very undecided for both BTC and ETH. I'm going to run through a couple of the alts that are starting to move already, and they're looking pretty bullish here and starting to break higher, but Bitcoin and Ethereum remain undecided. And this chart is just getting very narrow. You can see here, this is the daily chart of BTC here, and you can see this last big candle that we had on September 27th. I did a live stream that day saying we probably were nearing a little bit of a near-term top. Action felt climactic. We probably just needed to see some consolidation. We had a pretty good pullback since then and almost fully retraced that candle, but you can see here over the last couple of days just how narrow price range is getting. You zoom out in the big picture, I mean, this is just very tight, very low volatility type of action, and it generally precedes a pretty big move one way or the other. This could go either way. Absolutely could break higher, could break lower. It's kind of one of those next move wins type of scenario. Looking at Ethereum real quickly here before I deep dive into some of these charts. Same scenario here. After finding a pretty decent bounce off of the lows, you can see it's just starting to get really narrow. Now there is a lower trend line that I'm keeping a close eye on here, and you can see that here, and that's just been established here after that bounce from the lows, the exact low there being around that upper 160s, and you can see this trend line is creating a little bit of a support level, but you can see how prices are really starting to constrict here as prices narrow. All trend following indicators are essentially neutral at this point. You see the moving averages, they're just going flat here. Some of them are vacillating back and forth, over and under. You look at the MACDs, are pretty tight. The RSI is sitting right in the middle of range for most of these names, and so everything is just starting to really tighten up, really coil up, volumes drying up, and so I expect a breakout imminently over the next couple of days at most here. So just keeping an eye on this market both for the upside and the downside. We are in October. Q4 historically has been strong. Last year obviously was a monster Q4. I'm not expecting that sort of rally, but we should see some hopefully some seasonal strength going into this market. But keep in mind, in the big picture, BTC is still very much in that big pattern, that big symmetrical wedge we're starting to see form here, and I expect it'll resolve itself here during Q4. So October is going to be a real interesting month. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think there'll be some decent trading opportunities after this relatively quiet September, comparatively speaking to most other months here, and we're kind of just glad the summer's over. Q3 was a brutal month for brutal couple of months for the most part, and we're kind of looking ahead to Q4 and seeing if there's going to be any side of more trending, more tradable type of action here. So a few names I'm keeping an eye on here. Bitcoin Cash. It had that strong move last week. That did come on some news. That was the IPO and some of that. But you can see here over the last couple of days, again, this is the daily chart. You had that really strong move here last week. There was some good volume that came in off of this move higher. 2 very strong days. Broke right above resistance. That's that yellow line going across here right around 510. And you can see this pullback here over the last couple of days. Very quiet, very constructive, lower volume, letting these moving averages catch up, finding a new base right above this now support zone. And you can see it's starting to break the trend line here a little bit. Zooming in on the 4-hour chart, much clearer. And you can see that 4-hour volume here showing up in this latest candle as it pushes above this downtrend line. So looking pretty good here in the near term. Looks like it may be ready to resume another leg higher. Icon is another name that I am keeping an eye on here. It's been very tight, very narrow. You can see here on the 4-hour chart, and it started to break out here yesterday, pulled back a little bit, showing some renewed strength as it's now living above this downtrend. So one to keep an eye on here. The daily chart also looks very positive in my opinion. After a very long, very deep pullback, we had this big low rally and then a higher low established here early September. And since then, just kind of starting to meander, but you can see we're starting to see these moving averages starting to get really tight here, getting really close to inverting back to the upside here, the shorter term moving average above the longer term. And this volume is starting to look positive here on the shorter term time frames as this is trying to edge out. So just something to keep an eye on here. There's a few of those alts that are starting to move out to the upside while BTC and ETH sit tight here. Now looking at Ripple, Ripple is having their conference, their Swell conference underway. There was a little bit of front running, a little bit saying it mildly. There was absolutely some front running into that. You can see up 200% in a number of days before topping out pretty good and pulling back. And we've since had a pretty decent bounce to the upside. But I must caution that last year after Swell, it was one of those buy the rumors, sell the news. In this scenario, sell the event. And after the conference, prices just kind of fizzled out, and so got to keep an eye out for something like that here. The daily chart looks a little odd in my opinion. We had that big rally, RSI got pretty heated up, then he had a decent pullback. Now to be fair, the moving averages are still moving higher and things are still looking positive from that perspective, but you're not seeing a lot of buying volume like you did before, and in fact you're seeing some selling pressure here. You see that big red candle there, and then this most recent daily bar yesterday. Here's higher selling volume as the RSI didn't make a equal or new high relative to this price point. So just something I'm keeping an eye on here. You are seeing a little bit of momentum slowing down. Looking at that 4-hour chart, for the most part, it's just been flat. I mean, it's tried to edge out here a little bit over the last couple of days, but just kind of sitting tight here. And so I'd be cautious on this one. If it doesn't get going again, you might see that price kind of just fizzle out after the conference. So I know it's a popular one. It's been highly watched over the last couple of weeks, but right now it's at a little bit of a juncture. So best case scenario, it just needs to pause and perhaps build a continuation type of pattern, maybe some sort of ascending triangle pattern or something like that along these levels. And finally, Litecoin. Now I want to point out Litecoin versus BTC. I mentioned this one, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, and I was watching this for a potential breakout. And then last week we had a pretty decent move above this resistance level that I've been keeping an eye on, but prices came back within the range pretty quickly here. And so this is what I'm looking at. You can see this sideways channel that's really starting to build, and prices were really moving strongly last week. And you can see that volume there. And prices have since pulled back right to that moving average here, which is very positive. In fact, it's looking good even though it pulled back into range. The moving averages are holding up and creating this support level. And you can see the RSI has plenty of room to go on the upside on this daily chart if prices begin moving higher. So definitely one I'm keeping an eye on. This is a nice looking little bull flag on the daily versus BTC. And so near term, I'm looking for some more outperformance from Litecoin versus Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to BTC. We know that it's a directional leader, and if this decides to break higher and get a little bit of a bid, then I expect that the alt will do very well going into October, and vice versa. If this sees a sharp sell-off, and the levels to be watched right now are that 6,300 zone in and around there. You can see this, the bottom of this wick here was right around 6,320, and the one above that was 6,370. So that $6,300 level, if it starts to close in that range and below that, that's going to be very negative, and most likely you'll see another leg lower, which will retest the lows at least, which is right now strong support has been right around that 6,100 here. And you can see that's been the case since August. We had that low, but on a closing basis, prices have not gone below that 6,100 level. This line right here is right at 6,140, and you can see we've had these wicks, these very short-lived dips below, with prices reaching extreme here in the 5,800 range, but we haven't really closed below that. So right now that's been a strong floor that's being established here, a solid level of support. And so if we do see another dip, that's where I'd see some strong support coming in. If it breaks below that, that will be a significant break, because that's really held over the last couple of months as this big consolidation has been taking place. So something to watch near term. And then of course on the upside, looking at a close above 6,700 will be very positive. And then ultimately it's got to clear this high that it's set right around 6,800. 6,750 was really on the closing basis, but that little $50 range between 6,750 and 6,800 is really the most near-term resistance that needs to be cleared. So right now, just keep an eye on this range as it tightens up. I'll be posting some updates throughout the week as this plays out, but we'll see how October plays out. I'm looking forward to the new month and the new quarter, and we may even enter a little bit more of a long-term hold season. So I'm kind of keeping an eye out for that. Look out for that newsletter that I'm going to be sending. It's been a while since I sent a newsletter, but I will be sending one out later this week. And so if you don't get that, you can sign up for that at nodeinvestor.com. Thanks for watching today, guys. I appreciate the likes, appreciate the subscribes, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care, everyone.